Welcome to this introductory video on using REDCap at Athabasca University. The purpose of this video is to introduce you to REDCap at Athabasca University. By the end of this video, you should know what REDCap is and what it can and cannot be used for, understand how REDCap is configured at Athabasca University, understand how to create a REDCap account and log in, and understand how to create and start a project in REDCap. REDCap stands for Research Electronic Data Capture. It is a browser-based data capture software designed by researchers for researchers to collect or capture data. REDCap is used for measure design, data capture, and survey access. REDCap is a flexible data capture and management tool, and it has several capabilities, including to be used for public surveys, generating personalized survey links for specific participants, or manually entering information directly into REDCap. It can also be used to collect data either in person, on a research device, through email, or via text message. It can be used for one-time measures or repeated measures. It can capture qualitative and quantitative data, and it can be used to accommodate experimental, observational, and trial designs. It is also important to know what REDCap is not. REDCap is not designed to manage study documentation. It's not meant to act as a data management plan, although it can support data management planning. REDCap is not a data analysis tool, although it is capable of some basic statistics and reports. And REDCap is also not meant as a long-term repository for your data. REDCap at Athabasca University is hosted through Amazon Web Services, or AWS, in the cloud. An advantage of having REDCap supported in the cloud is that Athabasca University or the researcher only pays for the services used and as they're used. In other words, we're not paying for servers or IT staff, whose cost remains constant regardless of how much the system is being used. So this approach means that overall the cost of REDCap is less than what is expected at other institutions with in-place infrastructure. Athabasca University's REDCap is configured to the highest standards for data protection and collection, as per best practices in medicine and social work. As a result, any data collected through REDCap is stored on servers in Canada, data is encrypted in storage and in transfer, and login requires multi-factor authentication. Finally, data in REDCap is owned by the researcher. This means that Athabasca University and AWS IT manage the REDCap program or shell, but they don't access the data that's kept in REDCap. For more information on who can use Athabasca University's REDCap, getting letters of support to include REDCap in grant applications, how to cite REDCap in your proposals, or other questions related to REDCap, please contact the Athabasca University REDCap coordinator. Before jumping into how to start a project in REDCap, it's important to note that REDCap can accommodate several research designs, everything from experimental, randomized controlled trials, observational, longitudinal. However, it's also important to know that sometimes there are multiple options for a particular design. So for example, in REDCap, there's longitudinal options and repeated measures options. It's important to fully understand and plan out your research project before beginning in REDCap. Key design aspects like trials, groups, or repeated measures need to be specified early in the process and will affect what kind of options you have access to. To create a new project in REDCap, first log into REDCap. From there, click on New Project at the top of the screen. This will bring up a new window. First, enter the project's name. For illustrative purposes, we'll call this one example. You also need to select the project's purpose. Practice or just for fun, operational support, research, quality improvement, or other. Here we'll select practice or just for fun. There are also a few options under project creation. Most would start with an empty project or blank slate, but REDCap also has templates that you can use. These templates include basic demography, a variety of longitudinal designs, randomized control trials, and several versions of a basic survey. You can't break REDCap, so feel free to experiment. If you don't like what you see, you can always delete it and start over again. There are also templates that have examples of REDCap's more advanced features, including their piping or field embedding, which we won't be covering here. But if you're curious, you can use these templates to see how these features are used. For the purposes of this video, we're going to select an empty project. REDCap will automatically take you to the new project setup page and you're ready to start. Some features to note on this page before moving to measure creation. First, REDCap organizes project creation into sequential steps. And if you follow or move through these steps as outlined, you will have a solid data capture tool created by the end of the process. Be aware, though, that the number of steps can vary depending on your study design. REDCap also tracks which steps you've completed and lists this at the top of the page. REDCap also indicates the project status, that is, whether a project is in development or it's in the process of being designed and tested, or whether it's in production, which means it has been tested and it's ready to collect data. The transition from development to production occurs at the last step, so here's step 7. Note that it is possible to collect data to test your measure while it is in development. When you move it into production, REDCap will ask you whether you want to keep that data or delete it. It is incredibly important to make sure you test your project thoroughly before you move it into production. Although you can make changes to your project or measures after they're in production, this increases the risk that you could lose data or that you might have missed out on collecting data from participants. So it's much better to have the measures as final as possible before you move it into production and data collection. Some important features under the main project settings. So first, click Enable next to Surveys in this project if you want to collect data either using a public survey link or by emailing survey links to a participant. If you don't click Enable, then you can only enter data directly into REDCap, either by the researcher or by an in-person participant via a computer. Note that there's a question mark next to Surveys in this project. The information we just shared is also provided under that question mark, and tips like this are scattered throughout REDCap. Also note that enabling this feature adds additional steps or instructions. Specifically, it says that you can specify which measures are surveys in the online designer. Click Enable next to longitudinal data if you're going to collect longitudinal data from your participants. Again, note that enabling this feature adds additional steps or instructions. Specifically, it adds an extra step where you need to define your events and designate the instruments for them. Also note that you can modify the project title and purpose at this step. For your own tracking, click I'm done when you're finished with step 1. This concludes our Introduction to REDCap video. Subsequent videos will go into more detail on how to create measures, surveys, download data, and manage access.